Hi, it's Tom from BlackToad Studio, and here's my 2,000 points for our Stranglehold mission in our Onslaught campaign. So this is mission 4 obviously, and here is what I have bought. So down here we have Grimus Strodes again leading the charge in his Terminator armour. He is played by a Chapter Master profile with double lightning claws obviously. And he is joining his Assault Terminator squad again, so all Thunderhammers and Storm Shields. And over to the left here, first troop choice, we have a 20-man Crusader squad consisting of 10 Crusaders, 10 Neophytes, and we've got a Melter Gun, Power Axe, and the Sword Brother has a Power Sword and a Bolt Pistol. And over on the right hand side here, exactly the same for these guys, so all that again. And then towards the back here, we have our standard Dreadnought with a multi-melter, and to the left of him, we have Red Leviathan Munio, who's armed with a Storm Cannon and obviously the standard fist with an inbuilt Melter Gun. He also has Ceramite plating and 3 Hunter Killer missiles. I'll go to this one in a second, but back over on the left here though we have a Tank Destroyer armed as is, so just got the Laser Destroyer array, no upgrades. And then finally in the middle we have a Lord of War choice, which is a Storm Sword, which has been requisitioned by this particular Templar Crusade, armed with the 1 upgrade of the 2 las cannons there essentially. Other than that, it's all standard as what you can see on it. So that is it, that is my 2,000 points, we'll now move on.
This is Dom from BlackToad Studio, and here's my 2,000 points of guard. So starting on the left here, we've got one of my troop choices. We've got a platoon command here with 4 melter guns. Back here we've got 2 troop squads with 1 missile launcher and a flamer in each. Moving along, we've got an elite choice here, so we've got a Scion platoon, all mounted up in Taurox primes with Gattlers and autocannons. The 2 squads consist of 5-man squads with 2 melter guns in each. We got a command squad here with 3 plasma guns, a plasma pistol on the commander, and a medic. At the rear here we've got a fast attack. We've got a Vendetta gunship here. Moving across, we have got 2 veteran squads, both mounted in chimeras with heavy stubbers and heavy bolters. Both squads consist of 2 flamers and a melter, although this squad here we've got a plasma pistol on the sergeant. Front here we have got Field Marshal Hunt with a power fist. He's accompanied by the veterans, one with a sniper rifle, one with a flamer and one with a missile launcher there. And finally, to round off 2,000 points, we have got a Baneblade. We have got the Bolt of Kitrin here with heavy bolter sponsons on both sides there, both with las cannons and heavy bolter and demolisher cannons. So that is my 2,000 points of guard. There we go. Let's have a look at the mission and deployment.
And here we are back on Galden IV, and we are introduced to a sector in the outlying part of cities which is vital to the defenders' war effort. As you can see here, a macro cannon, 2 bastions making up a formidable defensive line that the attackers must break down if they're to proceed in this campaign. So as the Stranglehold times in this sector, the Templars are going to be smashing down here and trying to break the defenders off all the objectives. So in this mission, which is Stranglehold, we have 3 objectives, 1 up here and 1 over here and 1 up here, which must be held by the Templars if they are going to push the guard back out of this sector. So at the moment the attackers are on this side, and that's how it's going to stay. So the defenders' table edge is over here. So that's the mission set up, and now we'll move on. So as the guard have deployed in their defensive lines, as you can see it looking pretty sparse here, because everything has taken cover in anticipation of the incoming firestorm attacks. So under here, hidden away, is a Chimera with an infantry squad in it, and then in this bastion here another infantry squad is hunkering down waiting, along with 1 in the macro cannon and 1 more in the bastion over here, and finally 1 more Chimera there ready to hopefully not take too much fire from above. So that's all them deployed. We'll now move on to do some firestorm attacks. Okay, so as the firestorms come in, we're going to have 8 of them, so I'll start deploying them on the macro cannon. So Dom is going to hold the point for me nicely. So first attack is a hit, and then we'll see what we get. So 2d6, strength 9. I'll reroll that one, that's a bit too cocked. No. Second one. Probably going to be on it still, I think.
Yeah, still on there.
So we'll do a 2d6 on that one.
Ah, there we go.
That's a glance.
Yep,
Yep.
1 whole point down.
Third one.
Yep.
So it's put there. Might just be.
I think it's probably still on there.
Still on it, yeah, it's quite a big old. So the penetration, that one, number 3. Nothing on that one. Number 4, same again. Is a hit.
Yep.
I need that again.
Another
glancing hit.
Yep.
And then number 5.
Hit.
It's a hit. See what that gets. Nope.
Right.
Number 6.
Yep. So
yeah, it's probably going on there. And then see what that does on penetration. Nope.
Nothing.
Number 7.
Hit.
It's a hit. Another glancing.
Another glancing.
And the last one was a hit.
Yep. Oh.
No. So 3, was that 3 whole points there?
Yep, 3 whole points.
Fine, so that's the 3 whole points now. So we'll now move on to the attacker's first turn. So as the Black Templars came down just before they hit the atmosphere for the Deep Strikers and moving onto the battle plane, a Planet Quake bomb was set off, hitting all buildings for 1 strength 10 hit each. However, it does also make all terrain difficult. So they, obviously as they moved on the board here, they took a little bit more of a cautious step because the ground was rumbling. So over here, Grievous Strode's deep struck in here with his Terminator Assault Squad, ready to try and take out the macro cannon early before it has a chance to lay down any horrible fire. And over here, this Crusader Squad has moved on tentatively because the ground was shaking so badly they couldn't keep their feet. And over here, the Relic Leviathan Murio moved on and ready to hopefully get a charge off at some point during this battle because he really wants to smash some concrete up. So as we move into turn 1 shooting phase, this Crusader Squad has moved up a little bit towards the bastion over here, and down here this Terminator Squad is ready to charge the macro cannon, and over here the Leviathan Murio has decided to move up slightly because he was out of range of everything, but he really wants to get into combat, so he's heading towards the macro cannon as well. We'll now move on to the assault phase. So in the Templars assault phase, Grievous Strode's made it into combat and managed to place his melter bombs on the wall there, but unfortunately not enough force was directed at the walls, so it still stands. So that's it for Templars turn 1. We'll now move on to Guard turn 1. So as we commence Guard's turn 1 in the movement phase, the Guard have all exited several vehicles and locations to try and get better firing solutions. So down here this infantry squad's got out the Chimera and jumped into the defensive line, and up here one of the squads, is that the veteran squad?
Platoon command.
Platoon command squad has jumped up on top, ready to fire some melter guns down the unsuspecting Terminators. And down here this other infantry squad has exited the bastion, ready to hopefully mop up whatever survivors here from the heavy weapons that are now training them from the Baneblade over here. And finally this last squad here has got out of its Chimera and aimed its weapons towards there as well to make sure that definitely no one survives. So let's move on to the shooting phase. So as the Guard return fire commenced as predicted over here, the Baneblade put heavy losses on various locations. So down here, this squad took a Baneblade cannon hit and a Demolisher hit and was pretty much wiped out. Also adding to that particular fire was these squads here, and the emplacement weapons here, all managing to take off a few. So that 20-man squad looking pretty sparse now. Also the heavy bolters fired over here and managed to take out 2 Terminators. They did pass the leadership, so not running away, but unfortunately that was pretty heavy losses for Grievous Strode's squad. The las cannons put a couple of shots into the sidearm of the Leviathan as he shrugged it off with his save. So over here, the melter guns have fired down and the order got off to run back off to the back of the battlements to keep themselves safe, and they managed to pass that order and are now sitting on the back of the battlements without being in too much danger at the moment. And then finally over here, these guys shot over at the Terminators, didn't manage to do any damage. So that's it for turn 1 for Guard. We'll now move on to turn 2 for Templars and see if they can retaliate. So Templars turn 2 movement, and one of the dreadnoughts has decided to turn up and has made his target this Baneblade. However, not being able to assault, he had to rely on his multi-melter, so hopefully he can punch a hole through the side armour. This squad obviously can't do anything, having been gone to ground last turn, and over here the Storm Sword has rumbled on and has got a nice choice of targets in that direction, so hopefully he can flatten a few squads and make a few holes in the defence line. And then moving on over here, the Leviathan has moved up to give himself a wealth of targets. Up here we have one squad fleeing obviously, and here we have a fortification right in front of him, so he's hopefully going to get in there and do some damage. The commander's squad has moved up towards this little infantry squad here, hopefully going to get rid of them to increase the ground control in this area. And finally another Crusader squad has come on from the far edge over here and is making progress towards the fortifications to hopefully add their help to the charge. So as we move on to Templars turn 2 shooting. So in Templars turn 2 shooting, the Storm Sword fired its main battle cannon over here, taking out the Bastion and the squad that was sheltering in front of it with one blow. Pretty powerful, so that's gone, which is good for them. It also fired a heavy bolt around over here and wounded but didn't take anybody out, so they hunkered down, avoiding fire as best they can. The 2 las cannons over here and the melter from the gone to ground squad here all shot over at the Baneblade. Now, however, its armour shook off all the hits, so not good news there. Over here, and slightly better news, the Leviathan moved up, fired its inbuilt metal gun in its fist and managed to take out the remainder hull points on the bastions. That's blown up. However, the guys on top have escaped any harm and have jumped off the back to escape being assaulted by Terminators. The Terminators are looking ready to go into this squadron over here, hopefully take them out. Likewise, this squad over here, having run, getting ready and eager to get into battle if they can survive the incoming return fire from the guard again. So now we'll move on to assault phase for Templars. So as the Terminators got ready to assault with the commander, they were engulfed in a whole load of flame, and some lucky shot from the flame managed to take out one of the Terminators, so not good news for them, and also they failed their charge as per usual with these guys. So that's the end of turn 2 for Templars. We'll now be on to turn 2 for the Guard. So as the Guard entered turn 2 movement, the Baneblade spun its engines back up, having sensed the imminent threat from this particular dreadnought here, and moved back a bit to prime some of its weapons to try and take it out. And over here, this squadron is spaced out, moving back towards the objective up on the Sky Shield landing pad, trying to get that and hold it down. Likewise, this Chimera shot forward, unfortunately a little bit too enthusiastically, and managed to clip one of its tracks, causing it to drop off, and it's now immobilised and sitting there waiting to be repaired. Over here, the reserves start to turn up, and down here the platoon command squad for Tempest has turned up at the rear armour of this Storm Swords with plasma guns, so let's see what they can do. And over here, the Commander Hunt has decided to come on with his Vendetta right now, and he's lined up a couple of decent shots either at the Leviathan or at the Storm Sword, depending on how well these guys do, I presume. And moving over here, the Melter Guns crew over here has moved round, ready to start putting a few more rounds at the Terminator squad to try and whittle them down even more, because they're now sitting ducks there, so they've got the help from this squadron here as well. So that's that. We'll now move on to the shooting phase for Guard. So here we are, turn 2 shooting for Guard, and sadly another massive round came in from the Baneblade over here and took out a whole load more Templars with one shot, so they're looking a bit sparse again. Over here, this Tempesta squad hit the rear armour hard of the Storm Sword and managed to take off 2 hull points. That's sitting on 7, so that back armour looking a bit hammered but still holding in there okay. Likewise, this squad did take a lot of fire but managed to hold in there for a little bit longer from basically from heavy boulders and various other force sources, only took a wound. And over here, the lucky escape of this dreadnought, having taken a demolisher round, 2 las cannon hits, it's managed to stay alive with 2 hull points left. ready to charge in next turn because it has got extra armour. So that's that. So we'll now move on to turn 3 for Templars. As the Templars warm up for turn 3 in the movement phase here, the Vindicator came on at last and he's lining up a shot against the Baneblade here just to help out the Dreadnought, which will hopefully make it into combat this turn. Over here, this remaining squad of Crusaders is heading towards the Chimera, hopefully to get rid of it and then possibly secure this crater from the enemy. And over here, the Storm Sword has turned around to put its attention in this particular area, seeing there's a little massive infantry there, and it loves to kill infantry. Grimus Strodes has decided to tactically withdraw because he doesn't want to get caught in the crossfire from this massive blast, and likewise he has taken a lot of casualties to his Terminator squad. This squad up here has moved to get the objective, so they're sitting there at the moment. Hopefully they'll survive a turn. Like the Relic Leviathan Murio has turned around and is having a look at the Tempesta squad here. He's ready to hopefully open that can up with his claw. We'll now move on to the shooting phase. The Templars start the turn 3 shooting phase, and the multi-melter from there shot in and missed. The Laser Destroyer Array shot in here and managed to take 2 hull points off the Baneblade to start with, which is good. The melter from this squad down here actually managed to get an immobilised result in here, and it was already immobilised, so it managed to blow it up. Moving on over here, the big gun from this particular Storm Sword fired over all the way down into here and managed to take out 5 men from this squad, and that was it, because it didn't roll very well. So sadly not as much damage as before. However, not to be perturbed, this Relic Leviathan, the Relic Leviathan Murio, fired its 2 heavy flamers over the top of this Turox Prime and managed to take out the squad hiding behind it, and also managed to take a hull point off there and then finish it off with its cannon. The 2 members of this squad left and the commander moved back a bit in their run phase. Other than that, everything else seems to have escaped any damage, including Commander Hunt's plane, which was shot at by the 2 las cannons on the Storm Sword. So that's it now. We'll now move on to the assault phase. And down here in the assault phase for Templars in turn 3, the Dreadnought smashed into the armour in front of it and managed to take off 4 hull points, stripping it down to 4 left. So hopefully that will be gone soon. However, it's still going to have to do another round of shooting from it. So that is the end of Templars turn 3. We'll now move on to Guard turn 3. So at the top of Guard turn 3, over here, Commander Hunt has decided the priority target right now is this Dreadnought over here, to prevent it from probably taking the last hull points off that Baneblade has shot over this side of the battlefield, training the las cannons down there. Also, the last of the reserves turned up down here. These Scions have decided to come in with their melter guns and try and finish off the Storm Sword. Over here, this Scion squad has zipped over the battle lines and have also lined up a few melter gun shots here from their limited selection of weapons that they have currently in their possession. Over here, this squad has moved along the battlements, ready to try and possibly take on these guys up here if it goes on to the next turn. And over here, this melter gun squad has jumped into the trenches, ready to fend off another charge if there is one. So that is all the movement on that side of the board. However, over here, this squad has run up the ladders here to get on top of the Sky Shield landing pad to try and secure it for next round of reinforcements that may be turning up. So that is it for the movement phase for Guard in turn 3. We'll now move on to their shooting phase. So again, as the Guards return fire pours in, several things have happened in this turn. So the Baneblade has done a bit more damage here and there. So it did fire its demolisher cannon down at the Laser Destroyer, but actually missed, fortunately for him. Over here, a lot of combined firepower from the Baneblade. This Scion squad all fired in to the side armour and the rear armour, and managed to take off full hull points, 4 hull points from the Storm Sword. So he's down to 3, and he's looking a little bit more shaky now. Commander Hunt's Vendetta flied down here and managed to remove the threat of the Dreadnought, so the Baneblade is slightly safer at the moment. Finally over here, this squad here and this squad here used its las guns to fire up at this squad, Crusader squad up here, and managed to take out 3 of them. They did just hang in there on the leadership. So that's all the shooting for this phase. We'll now move on to turn 4 for the Templars. So turn 4 for Templars, and the Relic Leviathan Muriel has turned around to pay his attention back at this Meltagun squad down here. So we'll see if he makes it to combat with them. The Storm Sword has turned around and reversed over the wreckage of the Torox Prime, flattening it and getting a better firing solution on various targets on this side of the battlefield. Grievous Trojan and his single Terminator companion have turned around to deal with this Scion squad here, and likewise this Crusader squad has turned around to hopefully deal with this squad here. However, numbers are not in their favour at the moment. The Vindicator Destroyer has stayed still so it can overcharge its next set of shots against the Baneblade and hopefully take off those last 4 remaining hull points. So that is the movement phase. We'll now move on to the shooting phase. So as turn 4 shooting ends for Templars, a very successful turn for them. The Vindicator Destroyer over here managed to take out the Baneblade with 1 fusillade of shots. Didn't manage to take a hull point yet, however we'll just roll on camera here to see if we get a 1, and we do, so he takes a hull point. So he's down to 2 hull points, which I'll mark up in a minute. The Storm Sword over here fired in and managed to wipe out all but 2 of the squad that were holding the last Sky Shield landing pad, so hopefully they can be finished off in the next turn. The other weaponry from it, the las cannons, shot up at the Vendetta, unfortunately didn't manage to hit it, and over here the heavy bolter shot down and finished off a couple more from this squad here, along with 1 bolt pistol shot as well. The Leviathan Muriel fired over at the squad sitting in here. He fired a lot of weaponry, his storm cannon and 300 killer missiles, as he has run out of targets for them at the moment which are viable, which managed to take out all but 2 of that Meltagun squad there. So that is all the shooting. We'll now move on to the assault phase and see if the Templars can get a bit of blood on their swords. Turn 4 assault for Templars, and some strange things have been going on down here. Grievous Trojan charged in with his assault Terminator friend, and unfortunately he died to Overwatch, the Storm Shield not doing enough to protect him. However, Grievous Trojan managed to kill 4 very quickly. However, he was then surprised at the ferocity of the counter-attack, and he took 3 wounds, which is amazing really. So he's on a thin lifeline there at the moment. We'll see what happens in the preceding phase. And down here, the 2 remaining Crusader squad members charged into the squad that was here and managed to kill them. However, 1 did fall to Overwatch fire. So that is all the assault phase for the Templars in turn 4. We'll now move on to turn 4 for Guard. Turn 4 for the Guard, and over here this Torox Prime has turned around to get the rear armour shot on the Destroyer. Likewise, this one over here has lined up some shots against the remaining Crusader down here. Commander Hunt has decided that his priority target is the Storm Sword over there and has dropped out of flight mode, so he's hovering down here to make sure he can get the correct shots off to hit that massive tank. Over here, this infantry squad has moved out of the relative safety of the bunker there and is heading towards this objective up here. And also likewise the Meltagun squad there has moved around a bit, and also the last Chimera has reversed slightly to get himself out of danger. So that is all the movement for the Guard, and we'll now move on to the shooting phase. So turn 4 shooting for Guard, and over here this Chimera fired up all its heavy bolters and heavy stubbers at the squad that was up here, managed to take out a couple and unfortunately made them run, so they had run towards the bottom floor here. in front of the veteran squad which ran over the open ground to get onto cover over here. Over here, this Taurox shot the rear armour of the Vindicator destroyer and somehow only managed to actually take off one hull point in the end, even with the autocannons firing as well. Likewise with the backup fire from this, which managed to roll low on the penetration table. Up here, Commander Hunt fired down at the Storm Sword and managed to take off another hull point. However, it's still just hanging in there. So with that last few shots there, these infantrymen ran a bit further over this way just to give them a little bit more space away from that horrible weapon over there. So that is the end of turn 4 shooting. We'll now move on to assault. So turn 4 assault phase for Guard, and Strode's finally finished off the last 2 of the Scions there and has moved on this way to hopefully take this on next turn. So that is the end of turn 4 for Guard. We'll now move on to Templars turn 5. So turn 5 movement for Templars, and Strodes has moved towards this Taurox here. This remaining Crusader has moved towards the objective to try and lock it down. The Stormsword has done a little bit of movement just to give it slightly better line of sight, how it had most of its targets where it wanted to. Over here, the Leviathan Bureau has turned around to try and thin this squad out here before they can do any damage to the 2 Crusaders up here trying to hold the objective. So that is the end of turn 5 movement for Templars. We'll now move on to the shooting phase. So Templars turn 5 shooting, and all the weapons have shot in this direction from this Storm Sword, starting with the big cannon up at the flyer over there, managing to immobilise it and obviously take the whole point off it down to 1. So it's getting a bit nervous over there, I have a suspicion. The las cannons fired a couple of stray shots into the back armour of this particular Taurox, but only managed to take a whole point off it, so that's still in the fight. And the heavy bolter fired at the side armour that unfortunately didn't do anything, the rounds just plinking off the side. So our remaining unit over here, the Leviathan Muriel, sprayed a load of fire underneath the battlements over there and managed to take out all but one of the guardsmen hiding down there. So that is the shooting phase for turn 5 for Templars. We'll now move on to the assault phase. So Stroge charged in the assault phase, managing to take off 2 hull points from the Taurox, however not quite enough to get it off the table. So that is it. We'll now move on to turn 5 for Guard and see what goes on. Turn 5 for Guard movement, and this lone infantryman is making his way up the battlements to try and take out these last 2 remaining guys up here. However, he's going to have some support from this infantry squad that's jumped up on top of the battlements. He's going to put some fire in over here to finish these off, I have a suspicion. Down here, the slow melter gun has decided to take on the Leviathan and see if it can take off any hull points or maybe even destroy it with a lucky shot. Finally over here, this Taurox has decided to stay still, but it's only snatching, but however it's got a nice shot on the rear armour, so it's got a good chance of finishing it off with only 1 hull point left. And this Taurox has turned around to have a go at Grima Strode, who is sitting in front of it a little bit in trouble, possibly from all the shots that are going to rain in on him. Commander Hunt has dropped out of his vehicle and is down here in this crater ready to try and fight this lone Templar off the objective. So that is all the movement. We'll now move on to turn 5 shooting for Guard. So turn 5 shooting for Guard, and Grima Strodes has fallen now in a hail of fire from the Taurox's weapons there. So unfortunately he is down at the moment. And over here the Vendetta fired in all its snapshots and finally blew up the Storm Swords. That is now gone, leaving a heap of mass there. And then also over here, this squad with its crack missile snap firing. Lucky shot at the Templar there, and he's dead. So that's all there. And over here, this Taurox Prime finished off the Vindicator. So that is now gone not leaving an awful lot on the battlefield for the Templars. One Crusader up here and one Red Leviathan here. So that is the end of turn 5. So the question is, does the game continue? I believe Dom is going to roll for us on the camera here. It's on a 3 up. It does indeed, so we'll now head on to turn 6. So turn 6 for the Templars, and the Red Leviathan Muro has moved forward and is probably going to lay some heavy fire down on this squad sitting in the top of the tower. And also the remaining Crusader over here has dropped down a level to take on this remaining Guardsman to try and finish him off the objective. So that is all for movement. We'll now move on to the shooting phase for Templars. And the Red Leviathan here has shot up into the top of this bastion, taking out several of the Guardsmen in this infantry squad over here. However, different story for this Marine down here who shot his bolt pistol at the remaining flamer and unfortunately didn't do any damage, so he's going to have to risk an assault now into an Overwatch wall of death. So that is it for the shooting phase for Templars in turn 6. We'll now move on to the assault phase. So in turn 6 assault for Templars, this brave Crusader charged into that Guardsman and managed to kill him off without the wall death hurting him luckily. So that leaves him in quite a precarious position up there with this squad over here ready to lay down some more fire next turn. So we'll now move on to turn 6 for Guard. Turn 6 for Guard, and Hunt has moved into the crater and set up camp down here, just settling in for the long haul probably for the rest of the campaign. And over here this Taurox has moved round behind this particular threat over here along with the melter gun as well to see if they can take some hull points off it. That is that for movement. Now we'll move on to the shooting. So turn 6 shooting for Guard, and to start with, the rounds came in from this Taurox over here and the melter gun and did nothing to the Red Leviathan, and a lot of fire from various heavy bolter sources came into this guy up here and he managed to survive. So still holding that objective at the moment. That is the end of turn 6 for Guard. So the question is, will the game go on to turn 7? Yes, it does. So we'll now move to turn 7 and see what happens. Turn 7 for Templars. The Red Leviathan has turned around just to try and finish off this Taurox over here, and this lone Crusader has moved around the corner just to get out of the way of the heavy bolters at the moment. So that is turn 7 movement for Templars. We'll now go on to the shooting phase. Turn 7 shooting for Templars, and this Taurox has met its end to the storm cannon. So that is all. There is no assault for this phase, so we're now going to move on to turn 7 for Guard and see if they can mop up the last 2 units. So turn 7 movement for Guard, and these 2 infantrymen have moved behind the Leviathan to try and get a rear armour shot on it. So we'll now move to the shooting phase and see if they can achieve their goal. So at the end of this bloody conflict in this vital area of the planet, the score is Templars with 4 points and the Imperial Guard with 7. So the defenders holding on to this location, although very battered and bloody, they have managed to hold it from the Templars in this particular instance, with only the Leviathan and a single Crusader holding out towards the end. They will now evacuate out. And also, Grievous Strodes was grievously wounded during that battle, so we now need to see whether he will be out of the next mission or whether he will come back with a full recovery. So I will roll for that. He is out of the next mission on a 1, so that he is now no longer to partake until mission 6 of the Planet Strike mission. So we'll head on into the Forlorn Hope next game and see if the defenders can hold on to the next location, or will the Templars run over them like a black tide.